Welcome to Journey Home to Self. This is a place for us to explore the milestones, the roadblocks, the pit stops, and the breathtaking sights on the most important journey of our lives, the journey of coming back home to you. My hope is that through the stories, insights, knowledge, and wisdom we share here, you get inspired and activated to widely fall in love with choosing yourself every single moment. I'm your host, Deepshikha Sairam, and I am truly so excited and honored that you are here. Let's dive in and journey home to self together. Hello, gorgeous people. Welcome to another episode of Journey Home to Self. Our guest today on the podcast is a firecracker. She literally lit this episode on fire, and you will know what I mean after you listen to the entire episode. Natty, she's the founder at the Feminine Rebellion, an organization dedicated to guiding women back to their wildness. She's just someone who is a whole bunch of her energy, and I am obsessed with her. She is going to leave you inspired, activated, empowered, and fired up. That's how I felt for the entire day after I recorded this interview. She's incredibly embodied in her wildness, and honestly, all you have to do is listen to the episode, go follow her on Instagram, and you will see that this woman walks her talk. She leads women back to their wildness via her coaching practice and in-person mountain retreats. Doesn't that sound amazing? I mean, I can close my eyes and imagine myself on a mountain retreat right now. Her mission is to create an army of female leaders that this mad world is screaming for right now. She believes that the time is now for a feminine rebellion. She's a mom to 3 wild teenagers, an avid hiker, and a fierce lover of 90s hip hop. When she's not deep in the forest, you might find her scouring a local vintage shop for parachute pants, in her kitchen with her face planted in a bowl of buttery garlic mashed potatoes, yummy, or howling wildly under the moon with her sisterhood. If you're not excited about this episode, you're about to be, because let me tell you what we're going to talk about today. We are talking about unearthing your wildness. And before you're like, do I need that? Am I a wild woman? Do I have wildness in me? Yes, you do. And yes, you need this. All of us have that instinctual, animal, wild nature inside of us. And this is the time to reconnect to it, because if we don't reconnect to it, we're never going to be able to tap into that journey home to self. On this episode, Natty not only shared with us her journey of how she found herself, how she came back home, but also she explains to her tools that she uses with her clients in guiding them back to their own wildness. And get ready for a special surprise right in the end, because we ended this episode with a bang, or shall I say a howl. Just wait till you listen to the entire episode. Before we dive in and you get to experience all that Natty is, let me also tell you that every week on Friday on our Instagram account, that's at Journey Home to Self, I do an episode breakdown. That's the weekly episode that we break it down. So if you want to join us for, diving deep into the topic, or asking any questions, or just having a community that you feel close to, then join us. It's going to happen at 11 a.m. every Friday. And we are going to be breaking down this episode that's unearthing your wildness on our Instagram. That's at Journey Home to Self. So without further ado, let me introduce you to this beautiful and wild woman. Natty, welcome to Journey Home to Self. I'm so
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Oh my God, I am so excited for our conversation. I've been thinking about it. I'm like, this is going to be so good. Okay, I'm just going to go straight into it, because
Yes.
I've already given an intro and people already love you. They have to. Like, you're so amazing.
Thank you.
I want to talk to you about, how did you get to this? Your company's called Feminine Rebellion, right?
Yes.
Tell me about your work and how did you decide that well, first of all, what does it mean? What does the
Yeah.
company really mean? What does the name
Yes.
mean? And how did you decide that you wanted to name it that?
Yeah, great question. So, I mean, I'll circle back a tiny bit. So the feminine rebellion came to me because I was this like go-getting, high-achieving kind of like badass working woman who had like 3 kids at home and was like in this like super woman status, right? It's
Right.
like I think you can probably relate, right?
Of
We're like
course.
we're
And I'm
doing
sure
all
all listeners.
yeah, we're
This is
doing
this
all
is
the
a
things.
podcast for high achieving women.
Yes,
Right.
exactly.
We claim the world.
Exactly. So like that's where I was in my life and I was feeling like something was missing.
Mhm.
Something was missing from my life. So I went to a yoga teacher training and the yoga teacher told me to look into or explore the idea of the feminine.
Right.
Now, just the idea of the feminine to me, having been raised in like a pretty traditional Italian American family, youngest of 3 kids, only girl, the
Mhm.
idea of the feminine to
Right.
me felt a little bit weak
Mm.
or too soft.
Mhm.
But when I dove into the work, I recognized like the fierceness in like coming home to ourselves, like the journey home, right?
Right. Right.
So when I was creating my company, I wanted to kind of pull on this idea that like coming home to ourselves, coming home to our truest natures, our desires, our emotions, our wildness is kind of like an act of rebellion
Mhm.
in our current patriarchal hustle culture world that we're all steeped in. And so I named it the Feminine Rebellion. And really, like when I close my eyes and think about this business and like each woman I'm able to touch,
Yeah.
I envision us like really coming together in kind of like this rebellion formation
Right.
and together changing the world. Um, so that's kind of the meaning behind feminine rebellion. I mean, it takes a little bit of rebelliousness to choose to do things differently,
Yeah.
right? To choose to step away from this prescribed path and choose a different one.
Mm.
So that's kind of the backstory.
So good. We can just pack up and go home. Like
Yeah.
that's
And I think you and I are on the same page as far as all of this
absolutely.
goes, right?
Absolutely. I do want to dissect this a little bit because,
Yeah.
I totally agree. We cannot do this alone.
No.
We cannot. And
No.
that's where the world went wrong because the patriarchy came in and they eviscerated our circles. Right? They
Yes.
decimated our circles because
Well,
we
they
were
turned us
always
against each other.
exactly we were always in communion. We were always in circles. So we cannot do this alone. We have to come together. But I know that a lot of women and probably someone who's listening is like, I don't know if I'm there yet because we've all gone through
Yeah.
that, right? We were like you
Yes.
said, you were high achieving. I have
Yes.
been a high achieving woman as well.
Yes.
High functioning adult is what my therapist used to call me.
Yes. High functioning adult. Oh, yes.
Right. So what you said that there was something missing. What were the signs? Like how did you come
Yeah.
to the realization that even the realization that dude, I need to go for yoga teacher training.
Yeah, exactly. So that was so the yoga teacher training came probably like a year after a breakdown.
Mhm.
So really what happened was I was the executive director of a nonprofit, working a ton of hours and also with 3 little kids at home, married to a very high achieving man. And after work every night, I mean, really when I started realizing something was wrong is before I would go home to relieve the sitter, I would stop at my favorite restaurant and have a drink at the bar.
Mhm.
And it was like I needed after work always to kind of numb out before going home to my family with a drink.
Mhm.
And then I would go home, I would like hustle with the kids, homework, dinner, all those things. And then I would lay in bed at night And there was just like a laundry list of things that I had to do the next day,
Right.
a bunch of gut punches of the things that I didn't get done that day that I was supposed to get done. I couldn't sleep. My doctor put me on anti-anxiety medication. So I just felt like after, a year of this or a year and a half of this, I thought, I mean, let's be honest, probably more than a year and a half. I thought, my gosh, what is this what I'm here for?
Mm.
Is this what life is supposed to look like?
Mm-hmm.
Like, am I supposed to be so stressed? Like, there has to be more to life than
Yeah.
this. And so
Oh.
I think this is pretty common for women,
Mm-hmm.
This happened to me around like 38, and I work with women who are like between probably like 38 and 50 who are kind of
Right.
going through this transition, right? Like
Yeah.
we've done all the things, right? We've checked
Totally.
all the boxes, like
Yeah. Yeah.
kids, maybe partnership, maybe, but like definitely a career, a cozy home or a nice condo. We
Right.
have the things, we've leveled up at university and in our careers. And then
Yeah.
it's like, wait, now what? So
Exactly.
now
Exactly.
what? So like
Right.
that's where I was. And
Yeah.
so I left my job and told my husband like I just needed to take a break and like reassess. And
Mm-hmm.
also at that time like I was questioning my partnership.
Mm-hmm.
Like I married this guy who was a super high achiever who wasn't around a lot. I didn't feel like I was getting the attention I desired. So I began to question my marriage. So like everything was kind of this like swirling
Right.
dark storm. And I
Yeah.
thought, okay, I need to figure out my shit.
Right, right. There were all these signs that you were not numbing them anymore. And I always say
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with drinking alcohol, but when
Yeah.
we are doing, there's nothing wrong with shopping, there's nothing wrong with eating.
Yeah.
But when we're using those things to numb ourselves and not allow ourselves to feel the
Yes.
emotion, that's when we have to question
Yes.
here. And I love what you said, and that literally that has been my story as well to some extent, and I know that a lot of women will relate. I think there comes a time in our life somewhere around the age of 35 to 40, or maybe a little bit more than that, when we come to this realization that nothing that we thought would bring us happiness, the job, the house, the salary, the car, anything,
Yes.
anything that you thought that would bring us the happiness isn't. It's like almost like addiction, right? Because, like,
Yes.
for example, let's say you say, I want to make $50,000 a year. You make it. The first time you make it, you feel so happy. You're so exhilarated. You're so
Yes.
excited. You're happy. You're confident. You're like, oh my God, I'm at the top of the world. The next time you make equal amount of money, like, yeah, that's all right. That was fine.
Yes.
Third time you make it, you're like, yeah, no. Your ego comes in and says, no,
Yes.
like it needs to be more because we're
Yes.
always looking for more. So
Yes.
I think that begs the question, and that's where a lot of women are realizing that what if there's more? If all the things that we were told that does not bring us happiness and does not bring us contentment and peace,
Yes.
there's something more to that.
Exactly. And there always is. The thing is like, we've been trained, like you said, to achieve, to go for these things. And we're promised that when we get there, there'll be some like golden stew of happiness at the end of the path. But, many times there isn't, because along the way, on this path, we've kind of dropped the things that light us up, that turn us on. It's like when I start working with women, I'm like, well, what did you like to, what do you do for fun?
Mm.
And it's like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, do they know? Because a lot of I
No,
ask the same question. We have no idea.
no, we have no idea. So I always lead women back to their 5-year-old selves, like through a visualization or a meditation, and think, where were you at
Mhm.
5, 6, 7 years old when you lost a sense of time?
Mm.
Were you in the woods? Were you drawing? Were you playing teacher? Like, what is it you were doing? And for me, when I started looking back, I was climbing trees. So it's like, 6 years ago, I got, back into hiking and being in the forest and kind of reconnecting with that part of myself. And now it's woven into my everyday. It's where I come back home to myself.
Right, right. I was playing teacher.
Yeah. You were playing teacher. So it's like, okay, like what does that say about you? You
Totally.
know,
Yeah.
you
And
like to
that
lead.
exactly. That's my life path. I mean, you know a little bit about human design as well. I'm a
Yes.
3 by 5 manifester. Like
Yes.
teaching what I
Yes.
know is literally my life path.
You are here to inform.
Exactly. And I love this inquiry. I would actually pause here and guide every listener. Take a few seconds, even pause the podcast and go back to that 5-year-old, 6-year-old. Where were you? What lit you up? Where you did
Yes.
not know, did not have a sense of time and space, where it just
Yes.
evaporated.
Yes.
That's a beautiful, questioning to even start to identify, am I on the journey home to myself, or I am completely on a different path?
Yes. Yeah, it's autopilot, right? And
Right.
and the crazy part of all of this and the hardest part, the reason it's so hard to unravel is that, when we're taught about this path, this autopilot life, it's wired into our brains,
Hmm.
right? Like it's wired into our subconscious. So in order to kind of change the chemistry of our brain, we have to actually like physically begin to do things differently, and we have to kind of unbind from those subconscious beliefs that tell us that we should continue on this prescribed path. And that's the hardest part, because you can start to move your life in a different direction, but it's very, very tempting to dip your toe back into,
Totally.
right, the world where you're most loved,
Yes. Yes.
because you're achieving.
Yeah. Did you have a hard time? Did you have a period where you were like, I want to go there, but it's tempting. Was it 2 steps forward,
Yes.
1 step back, or 5 steps back for
I
you?
thought of leaving my job for a year before I did.
Yeah.
So, and it was like, yeah, I felt like, well, people are going to think I'm a failure. People are going to think I'm giving up.
Right.
People are going to think I'm crazy. I've worked so hard to get to, where I am. I'm giving up part of my identity too. It's like this identity of like this woman who, is doing it all. Like
Yeah. Is a high achiever.
is a high
Can do more.
achiever. Yeah,
Yeah.
and now I'm going to be like the person who leans out.
Right.
This is around the time that Lean In book
Right. Right.
was
Right.
out, and it was like everyone was like leaning in. And, I'm leaning out like
Yeah.
I'm the loser.
Yeah. Yeah. And I went through this exact same thing. I decided to pivot my business from being a business coach to, spiritual coaching.
Yeah.
And I've had the exact same experience. They were almost, I struggle with that. Even the decision making, should I do it? Should I not? Try to do both at the same time for almost a year and a half. And even when I made the decision that I'm going to pivot, it took me so much. It takes courage, I have to
Yes,
say.
it
I'm not
does.
saying that just because I did it or you did it. I know you. I know it takes courage to say that. Fuck no, I'm not.
Exactly.
I'm not going the same path. I am taking a different route, no matter how hard it is.
Yes.
I'm taking that. So I totally get it. It takes like
Yeah.
shame and feeling of
So much
pain.
shame and
So much.
failure. Yes. And the beauty of it, though, is like, it's like the ripple effect of it, right? Like you do it, and then you use your manifestor superpowers to talk about how it's possible, and you ignite other women around you just to open up their minds to what's possible,
Mhm.
right? I mean, this is the feminine rebellion, right? this
Yeah,
this is like one woman does it, and then another woman's like, wow, I want what she's having.
exactly. Yeah.
So that's the power of the journey home,
Yeah, totally.
right? Is
Totally.
that you ignite the women around you.
Yeah. This reminds me of this conversation I had with someone months ago. This was probably 1 year ago when I was thinking about, journey home to self and guiding women to back to home. And I was talking to someone I really respect, and she was like, yeah, it sounds great. And I know it's needed, but no one willingly would step into this journey. And my
Mm.
immediate reaction when someone tells me that no, it can be done is like, watch me do it. That's my first
Yeah.
reaction.
Yes.
And but the more that I've thought about it, and of course I internalized it for so long, and I was like, yeah, no one needs it. No one wants this. I go
Hmm.
through this every single day. Just yesterday, I was texting my friend. I'm like, I don't think anyone needs this podcast. And she was like, you're not
Oh,
doing this for anyone. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm doing this for myself. This is journey home to myself as well. But it
yeah.
begs the question then that if people are not going to do it willingly, it's changing the perspective, because I believe life is
Yes.
always giving you signs to guide
Yes.
you into journey home to self. And
Yes.
can we just change the perspective of looking at our life a little bit differently? Just those
Yes.
simple questions. What did
Yes.
I love to do when I was 5 years old?
Yes.
Am I using alcohol or shopping or Netflix to numb myself? What am I depriving myself of? Just those
Yes.
simple shifts, like I call those 1 degree shifts, can lead you to the threshold of journey home to self. Has that
Yes.
been your experience?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And, I think also a very important part of this is like our awareness, right? Like awareness of the world that we're steeped in. So, in the beginning of women's journeys with me, I give them a couple books. One is Patriarchy Stress Disorder, Dr. Valerie Rain.
Mhm.
So I'm in the midst of spending 1 year deep diving into this with her. We're just getting at the tail end, and she's so magnificent. So like that book kind of describes the landscape, right?
Yeah, it's an
Of the
activator, totally.
Yeah, of the world that we live in. And another book is The Heroine's Journey
Mhm.
by Maureen Murdoch, and that really speaks so beautifully to the journey from kind of high achieving these boons of success to what she calls spiritual aridity. So this moment between 35 and 40, maybe, when you kind of wake up and realize that like things feel dry and crunchy and no longer fulfilling. So like just starting reading these books
Yeah,
can
yeah,
be
totally.
really
Another couple of
powerful.
books that I love and were total activators for me. The first one was Love Warrior by Glennon Doyle.
Oh, I haven't read that.
Oh, you're gonna lap it up in like one day. It is
Okay.
so good. And it is believed to be a very activating book for women who are being called into the divine feminine, who are being into, there's something in that book which is very
Okay.
activating. And of course, I don't know if you've heard, I have a feeling you might have the women who run with wolves, or women who run.
Oh my God. Yeah. Of
Yeah.
course. Of
That, like,
course.
when I speak to you, I'm like, yeah, she is such a believer in that whole
Yes.
philosophy. I absolutely.
Yes. That was a huge igniter on my journey. And actually, the first iteration of my business was called Tribe of Wolves.
Mm,
Um, and the wolf, or a pack, wolf pack of women, really.
yeah, yeah,
Um, anyway, yeah, that's such a great book. The archetypes in that book are amazing,
yeah.
inspiring.
So talking of wolves,
Yeah.
let's talk about this concept of guiding women back to wildness.
Yeah.
That's what you do. It's such important work. My question here is, why is it so hard? Why have we lost touch with our wildness? I mean, we've touched the subject that,
Yeah.
we lost touch because of patriarchy and everything. But when it comes to wildness, I guess the question I'm asking is that, okay, there are a lot of women who'll be like, all right, I'm ready to lean out, I'm ready to do things my way. But still, that path from that softness that we
Yes.
associate femininity with, and
Yes.
often weakness as well, to wildness, that's very
Yeah.
uncomfortable.
Yeah. Sure. So it's funny when I use the term wildness, that actually comes back from, this idea that we are natural wild animals, basically, with basic needs, desires. And there was a moment in the world thousands of years ago when we were living in tune with our rhythms, with our cycles, with each other, with the earth. And, my desire is to guide women back to our natural state.
Mm.
So the term wild, I mean, some women associate it with like girls gone wild, right? Like
Like
crazy.
a night of drinking and partying.
Yeah,
That's
no,
not what
no.
this is. We're not talking about that.
No, no. I mean, unless that's your jam. But
Right.
what I'm talking about is coming back to your natural state. And like, this is where human design fits so beautifully
Right.
into the puzzle, right? It's like understanding who we are in the most like basic, our most basic elements, like
Yeah.
coming back to our desires.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that we want for our lives? How do we want to show up in our relationships? What kind of mother, partner, business partner, community member do we want to be? How do we want to show up in our lives? Like, so when I say come back to the wildness, I mean, come back to the truth of who you are,
Mm.
because we have been steered away from being those women.
Yeah, we've been tamed, basically.
Yeah, we've been tamed. I mean, to the point where I know so few women who like love their bodies,
Mm-hmm.
right? It seems like when I was in circles, years ago, before finding this work, a bunch of mommies would hang out and drink wine after our kids went to bed. And inevitably, the conversations were around dieting, parts of our bodies we hated, what we hated about our husbands. It was all so sad,
Right.
really. There was no celebration of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So, we've been steered away from just even the simplest thing is like loving these bodies,
Yeah.
loving these bodies that we're in.
Yes.
So, yeah, I believe when you kind of come back to yourself, your gifts are revealed,
Mm-hmm.
your truth is revealed. The things that turn you on are revealed. You love your body, you heal your relationships with the people around you. And I'm not saying it's easy, right? I mean, learning how to be vulnerable and speak our desires is really hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was, kind of going through this clunky time with my husband and I thought, maybe we should get divorced, our therapist said to me, we were in couples therapy. Well, what is it you want? Like, paint the picture for me. And I got really choked up and I had this image of myself at my stovetop, like stirring like my grandma's ragu recipe.
Mm.
And my Jerry Garcia is on the radio and like my kids are like dancing sillily in the kitchen. And then my husband comes up behind me and he like puts his beard on my neck and kisses me. And there was just like a tenderness that I was craving. I wanted to feel held in my relationship. I
Mm.
wanted to be able to soften because I was so hard.
Right.
And it was embarrassing to utter those words actually in that therapy session because it sounded too soft
Or too
to me.
simple, right? It's
Yeah.
that's so simple.
Yes.
Yeah. But those are
And
the things that we desire. And often,
yes.
before we even desire them from others, we desire those things from us.
Yes. And that's the thing. Exactly. You hit the nail on the head. It's like I desired to give myself some tenderness,
Yeah.
to give myself some love and some compassion, and to say to myself, wow, Natty, you've worked so hard and you're so tired and you just want to rest and be taken care of and, fall into the arms of your man sometimes.
Yeah.
And how beautiful is that?
Yeah.
And I thought that made me a bad feminist.
Mhm. Yeah.
But that's really what my body was craving. And so being vulnerable enough to kind of share that and speak that out loud wasn't easy, but it was a turning point
Mm.
in my relationship with my husband
Beautiful.
because he was like, oh gosh, well, thank you, because I've been wanting that, but you're so badass that you don't let me.
Right. Right. Hey, Deepshika here. I just wanted to take a quick break and thank you for tuning in. I love making this podcast for you, and I hope you love listening. If you do, the best way to show it is, yes, you guessed it, reviews. Reviews, especially on Apple Podcasts, help the show's visibility and get it to more people. So if you're enjoying the show, let us know. Thanks again. All right, let's get back to the conversation. That was beautiful, Natty. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I also think that there is another side of this. While there are so many women who are very scared, and often they feel that if they agree to their vulnerability, or if they even say it out loud, that's gonna take away from them,
Yeah.
something. On the other side, I've also seen that we have a huge resistance to even express our fierceness,
Yes.
right? So even and that goes to the fact that we're being taught to not feel our emotions and put them down. One of the things that I do with my clients, and I do it myself, is that when we have to let out, we literally howl and we literally
Yes.
scream.
Yes.
And I will tell you that it is so uncomfortable for us to do that. We're always thinking about who's listening, what are people gonna hear. If we express ourselves in that way, because we associate femininity with such softness and delicateness and Barbie figures and
Yes.
all of that bullshit, that
Yes.
we even forget that there is an archetype of Kali Ma who
Ugh.
is fierce,
Yes.
right?
Kali
She
Ma,
is
yes.
the destroyer.
The dark goddess. I love.
Exactly.
Yes.
And Sekhmet and Black Madonna. And
Yes.
we have these archetypes in our, in the
In our
feminine.
psyche. Yes.
Exactly. What was your experience with that? Is that something that you were able to reclaim back for yourself, or was that like that was
Well,
easy for me?
yeah. The dark goddess, was one of the easier archetypes for me to kind of unearth and get to know. Yeah, I grew up with boys where, there's a physicalness. I learned how to be fierce as a kid. It was the softer, more Lakshmi,
Yeah.
leaning into abundance and not pushing so hard for everything. That was the sticky point for me, because I'm used to working really hard for what I
Right.
want
Right.
and not leaning back and noticing the abundance around me, and like looking for those signs, right? So that was the hardest part. But I think, like, to your point, you know I think it's Mama Gina who says, we have a spectrum of emotions that are like the keyboard on a piano, right? We have 88 keys of emotions. And coming into the feminine is learning the nuances of like how to play each one, right? From like the deepest, darkest tones to like the brightest, lightest, excited ones.
Yeah.
Learning how to be, connected deeply to all of our emotions and to fully accept them, and to know that they don't need to overtake us, right? They're energy and motion, and they're here to be expressed.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Love that. That's what and emotion is energy in motion. And when we don't express it, it gets stuck. It gets
Yeah.
blocked. And that's where
Yes.
it feels gunky, it feels messy. But when we allow ourselves
Yes.
to feel that, it just flows through, just like
Yes.
any other thing.
Yes. 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 Yeah, totally. And it's easy to do, it's an easy practice you can do on the daily. I have a morning practice that I share with the women in my circles, and I can share it with your
Absolutely. Go.
listeners too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'll give you a link to it as well. So basically, it's a 3-part practice that's all about kind of tapping into our emotions. You do it first thing in the morning. The first is just dancing to one song. So kind of wake up in the morning and check in, like before your feet even hit the ground, before you leave bed. Kind of notice what's bubbling up inside of you, how you're feeling. Is there a tinge of anger? Are you feeling slow? And then you pick a song from Spotify that, or whatever, Apple Music, that will kind of pull on those emotions, or you can imagine would like kind of pull them out of you and help you express them. And then you move to that one song. I have a space in my house where the door is shut and no one else gets to come in here.
Yeah.
So that's important. So, if I'm feeling low, I might be like rolling on the floor to like Coldplay or something.
Right.
If I'm feeling ragey, I always go to Guns N' Roses, Welcome to the Jungle, and I have like a kicking bag and I do some boxing.
Yeah.
Anyway, so you move to one song and then you sit for your meditation, which could just be 5 minutes of breathing, super simple meditation practice, and then journaling. And like I have some journal prompts in this thing that we can share, but just like noticing how you feel after, how you felt before, maybe some goals for the day. So it's just a great anchor.
Yeah.
First thing when you wake up in the morning, that anyone can do. You don't have to be like diving into it's nothing scary.
Yeah.
All high achievers probably get up at 5:30 in the morning anyway. So if you're like me, I'm like, my eyes are open at 5:30 and I'm like, what's on my list?
And if you can't do it first thing in the morning, then find some time during the day. Do it in the night. Do it whenever.
Nighttime's great. Yeah, exactly. Do it whenever.
Because high achieving women are always like, okay, just give me the prompts.
Exactly.
Do it. I will do it. And if I can't, then I will not. No, make it your own, right? For example, for me.
Good point.
Exactly. I probably won't do it first thing in the morning. I will do it after everybody has gone off from my home and when I have time and space in my home. So make it your home. And I also love that you said that write down your goals, because that's another thing that I hear from women a lot, is that their perspective of this work is that if you start doing this work, which means that you cannot achieve your goals, or you have to leave those aside.
Yes.
And it's not about that.
No, not at all. It's about weaving this into your life.
Right.
Like, the women I work with are, financial planners and senior VPs, and they're still very high achieving women.
Exactly.
It's more about getting in touch with your desires. When you show up at the office, you can have like the conversation about, whatever you've been burying, right?
Exactly.
With confidence, with grace, with true human connection, because you're getting to know yourself.
Totally. And imagine if you've been kicking ass with the versions of ourselves that we've been living, how much more ass would we all kick if we just got to know ourselves a little bit more?
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. And we need the women out there doing the work. Like, we need women in places of power. So this isn't about like leaving your job. Actually, when I think back to, however many years ago, when I left my like traditional career, I'm like, oh, I wish I'd had a coach back then who helped me stay in my career. Who showed me how to do things differently while staying in my career. Like, it doesn't have to be an either or. You don't have to burn it all down.
That's a very good point. Yeah. I've had those thoughts too, because I burned down my one business and then I was like, okay, I'm going to create some space. But that's also the manifestor in me. I had to burn it down.
Yes.
But I've often felt like, I wish I had this podcast to listen to back then, which could tell me that it's okay. It's all right.
Yes.
You're taking some time for yourself to reassess.
Yes. Yeah. It's okay to slow down.
Exactly.
I mean, it doesn't make you any less.
Totally. Yeah. So Natty, if you don't mind sharing with us, tell us a little bit about, the work you do, and if, you have a process or a framework to guide women into their wildness. What does that look like on a practical basis?
Yeah, sure. So, typically I do right now just one-on-one coaching. We'll have a group programming coming out spring of 2023. But the one-on-one coaching is 4 months. typically. Although I have a couple 1-year clients, but we start looking at kind of the roots of where we are right now. And that's really looking at your societal programming, why it is we're feeling the way we are. And really, that's like, I always give women those 2 books right when we start, so they understand like this ecosystem, right? So, and then I introduce human design, as a map, really. I call it the map to their wildness, really, to understand the energetic patterns and why we're who we are on an energetic level. And then we move into reclaiming the wisdom of our bodies. And a lot of this is just helping women drop out of our deliberating minds and into the wisdom of our bodies. So we do a lot of body work, a lot of somatics, using our body as a compass to steer us in the direction of our desires. And a lot of like kind of trauma unraveling at that level too. So identifying places in our bodies where things are stuck. And then we dive into energetics. So understanding that everything in our world, including us, is just energy. So we dive and do a lot of emotional work. Yeah. And basically that's it. I call the program Howl because at the end I envision, the women going, oh, like here I am.
I
like
love that.
planted in the earth. So it's a lot of different practices. I'm a biologist by trade. So it's a lot of metaphor, where the wildness comes in. So like where we're rooted, where we're planted, how we're growing, the things we need to prune away. So
oh my God,
it's a wild ride.
I love that. I love the metaphor of literally a tree. And I feel like I'm short of words here to describe how important this is and how beautiful it must be for women to take this journey. I'm so happy that there are women like you who are doing it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, me too. I feel like, oh, wow, this gets to be my life.
Right.
This is freaking amazing.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
yeah.
How did this work change you? What was your gift in the journey home to self? I can definitely witness, and the listeners can't see us, but I can see this glow and this happiness and this contentment in you. How do you think, if you look back, what was the biggest gift?
I would say the 2 biggest gifts, I have to say there's 2, is my relationship with my partner has flourished in a way that I didn't think was possible. Look, I had seen images of it, and it's not like every day is unicorns and rainbows,
of course,
but I feel seen. And I feel like it's a real partnership. So that's the hugest shift. And the second I would say is my connection with my kids. Like this is just off the top of my head, but I've got teenagers, 14, 17, and 18.
Wow.
And raising children and being so in touch with yourself and actually teaching them how to be in touch with their emotions, especially a 14-year-old boy. I feel like this work is so, so powerful that I get to share this with my kids in the hopes that they don't, and I know they will have struggles, but that I've showed them what it looks like to be a woman who's, strong, soft, and in touch with my sexuality. Like I'm able to openly talk about sex and pleasure with all of my kids. And I feel like that is kind of like I'm giving a gift to the next generation.
Absolutely.
So I think that's it. And then like there's my own stuff, but which is amazing, just like feeling confident and happy and kind of knowing my place in the world.
Yeah.
So,
beautiful.
It wasn't one thing. I'm sorry.
No, totally. That's fine. It was kind of like a trick question, of course.
I love trick questions.
But I totally agree with you. And that it is a gift for our next generation, because if we can have a generation of men and women who are in touch with their
Yes.
emotions, who can,
Yes.
feel their desires, their sexual pleasure, anything,
Yes.
then we're changing the world. We're changing the entire paradigm. We're changing the narrative. We are
Yes.
elevating the consciousness of the,
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. I love that. Elevating the consciousness. It's like changing the collective,
totally.
right?
And like you said, you and I, we do this work, we are activators. Someone
Yes.
listens to us, transforms themselves, then maybe pass it on to someone they know or their
Yes.
children. That's how
Yes.
that's how the world changes. And that is how the
Exactly.
world will change. I also want to ask you the flip side of it, which of course, when we have gone through the journey, we often see that the challenge that we saw that as a challenge and was very hard was not really a challenge, but it was an opportunity for us to come
Mm.
back home. For me, I've talked about this in the podcast before. For me, the overarching lesson for me, especially in like my big journey home, of course, we're always taking these tiny little journeys,
Yes.
was people pleasing, overcoming that,
Uh,
overcoming people pleasing, and
yes.
reclaiming my own self worth. What was that for you?
I'm going to just take a second here. I'm going to say overdoing.
Mm,
I would fill every moment of every day with something. I mean, even if I had like a 14-minute window in my day in between meetings, if I could run to the store and pick up, you know, something my kid needed for school the next day, like every single minute of my day was jam packed
mm,
with stuff. So there was just no space for me.
yeah.
So I think for me, reclaiming the space for myself and
Mm.
actually like recognizing the importance of that, like putting myself at the top of the list.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, beautiful. And I just loved, I mean, listeners can probably see how authentic this is, because I love when people say, I just want to take a moment to think and then answer this. We
Mm.
often, it's the littlest things, right? We often don't even give ourselves moment to think, because
Yes.
if I don't give the answer right now, people are going to think I'm so
Right.
dumb, right?
Yeah.
I love it when people say, I just want to think for a second. I don't have the answer for you right now, but I'm going to think, see what my body wants to say, and then respond. It's the little thing, but these
Yeah.
are the things that make so much difference.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. You know, a girlfriend said to me this morning, I was talking to her on my hike in the woods, and I said, oh, I have to get back and shower. I have a podcast interview. She said, are you nervous? And I said, huh, no, I'm
Hmm.
just going to go and talk about what I do and have an awesome conversation.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh gosh, yeah, you really, you really love your work and you're really like confident about this. And I'm like, there's nothing to be nervous about. This is like two juicy women diving into the things that excite us and turn us on.
Right,
So
right.
yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about that part as well. Natty and I were just having a conversation on how Natty splits her time between New Hampshire. You have a cabin there,
Yes.
and then
Yeah.
you live in, did you say Boston?
Yeah. Just outside of Boston. Yeah.
Awesome. So how did that happen? Came around. There's an interesting story behind it. I would love the listeners to hear it.
Yes, yes. So, I mean, basically, when I started to come back home to myself and recognize, my desire to be in the woods,
Mm-hmm.
to reclaim that 6-year-old Natty, to do the things that turned me on, I realized that, we were living in suburbia, just a few miles outside of Boston, house, 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 house. My backyard's, 11 feet wide. There's no space here. That I wanted to be able to escape to a place in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I talked to my husband about it. We figured out, what was possible financially. And we bought a place. a tiny little cabin. I mean, it's not even 1,000 square feet. And the fact that we have two dogs, bunnies, a guinea pig, kids, us, friends that shove ourselves into that space. But it's set on 12 acres.
Oh, beautiful.
And it's just tucked into the woods in this beautiful community in New Hampshire, filled with artists and writers and outdoors people. And it's just a delicious little community. Yeah. So this was birthed really from this coming back home to myself, this coming back home to my wildness. And so now I actually am an empty nester ish. I have two high schoolers in a boarding school. And then my oldest just went to college.
Mm-hmm.
So my husband and I are like in the process of kind of redefining what our work looks like. And do we need to be in suburbia? Like, so we're kind of shifting our lives. I just became a New Hampshire resident. So I put a stake in the ground.
Amazing.
So,
congratulations.
yeah, it's very, very exciting. So we're spending more time up there, really, than we are outside of Boston.
Yeah.
So,
And I just want to reflect it back to you and even the listeners to make that connection that when we start asking those questions, like Natty guided us to ask in the beginning of this podcast, what did you love to do as a 6-year-old self? And Natty said, I want to climb trees. And when we unlearn the things that we have learned, we go on that journey. The universe plays along.
Yeah. The
It's
universe really
always
does.
being guiding you back to you. So when you like, okay, I'm going to follow this path now, I'm going to follow this journey home to self, universe just makes things happen. I love how that came about for you and literally gave you the opportunity. And I'm sure it wasn't easy, like, it just came on a platter, but you have it now and you have the opportunity to go and climb trees if you wanted to.
Yes. And it's just like following the breadcrumbs, right? So it's like I had
Right.
this little desire and I was like, I wonder if that's possible. I don't even know if that's possible. And it was like a couple Google searches. We purchased our place in New Hampshire for less than some people pay for cars. So it wasn't like we found a place that, needed a little bit of work, was just a place to kind of plunk down. We didn't need anything fancy. It was like, but you just keep following
the breadcrumbs.
And it's like, what's possible? What's possible next?
Yeah.
Okay. Universe, I'm open. Show me the next thing.
Yeah.
Like, but also the little bit of work on our end, right? Like
totally. Exactly.
having the fortitude to like keep going.
Oh, totally. Totally. Oh, this is so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing all about you and the feminine rebellion with us, Natty. Where can people find you?
Yes. So on Instagram at the Feminine Rebellion. I just popped up a new website actually this last week because my manifesting generator just does that. And that's nattyfrasca.com.
We're going to link that in the show notes for you guys to check it out.
And then I'll give you the link to that morning practice.
Oh, that would be lovely. Thank you so much. You're so generous.
People can check that out.
Yeah. All right. I have a couple of questions. Actually, one question and one request for you.
Yeah.
And for everyone else. So, I believe that we are always on this journey. There's never an end. It's all about the journey. It's not about the destination. We're always constantly evolving. So what journey are you on right now? And what's one gift or lesson or challenge that you're facing right now in it?
Well, I would say the journey that I'm on right now is finding this kind of new wild rhythm without my kids around. So I will say there were some dark moments when I dropped each kid off at school this year because I've had just like a full nest of love, juicy kid, dirty socks. So this new journey for me it's interesting. There's much more space than I ever had, which is exciting. But I also, there's a part of motherhood that like, you're so so tied to your kids.
Totally.
I'm missing them.
Yeah.
I'm missing just the nighttime snuggles, the family dinners, like, the highlights of your day, all that. So that's kind of what I'm working through right now, is like
Yeah.
finding out my new rhythm
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
And then what was the second part of the question?
Well, that was it. Like, what's the gift or
Yeah.
challenge or lesson that
Yeah.
you're
So
seeing today?
that's kind of where I am right now. And like, some days I'm really excited. And then, some nights every night I used to snuggle in bed with my kids for like each one, 3 different beds for like, 10 minutes. Like
Right.
even my 18-year-old, it was just like, oh, show me what you're looking at TikTok, or
So you got like 30 minutes back.
yeah. And now I'm like, okay, what are my husband and I going to do? What's our new rhythm?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
Reclaiming our
sure.
fun,
Mm-hmm.
going to see more live music. I'm sleeping in a tiny bit later, so it's just like all of these things. I'm only on week 2
Oh,
of
yeah.
this.
It's new
So
for you.
this is new territory. So that's kind
Yeah,
of,
no, I can imagine. Yeah.
yeah,
Just a couple of weeks ago, my son's older one started middle school this year,
yeah.
and he now walks to the bus stop on
Mm,
his own. And he would, of course, leave. And then after a few minutes, he didn't want me to come with him. He was like, no, I
yes.
want to walk on my own. I was like, yeah, totally. But
Yeah.
I was worried because the bus stop was a little bit further than my comfort level. So
Yeah.
I would like sneak behind him to walk the dog.
As mothers do.
Others do. And then I was on a long walk and I was just wondering about how would it feel? My days right now are filled with what are they going to have for snack? Where's the
Yes.
sock? Where's the gym clothes? Like all
Yes.
those little things, we need to set up a play date, this, that.
Yes.
And I almost like had tears in my eyes because we're going to be empty nesters in probably 6 years, which is a long time. But
But it
even
goes like that.
totally, it goes like in a jiffy. But even like thinking about it, there's this excitement to it because I know that I'll have so much of my time back. But there's
Yeah.
also this, oh my goodness, like,
Yes.
do I even know who I am if I am not constantly thinking about these
Yes.
tiny little things for my
Yes.
kids?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm right there with you.
I can totally imagine.
Yesterday, I used to love to paint. And so yesterday I went to Michael's and I bought a canvas and a bunch of paints, and I have an art studio in my basement here. And I started working on a painting, and I'm like,
Beautiful.
oh my gosh, okay, so this is okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is okay.
This
We're
is
like,
okay.
diving into my creativity, and anyway, so it's interesting.
It's a new journey for you, sure. I'm
Yeah.
sure you'll do fine and you'll find the balance in between
Yes.
missing them and also enjoying your time,
Yeah, for sure.
without them. Natty, I have this odd request for you. And
Ooh, I love odd requests.
I would like the listeners to join us. I have never
Yeah.
done this
Okay.
on a podcast for sure, but
Okay.
I think this is going to be a great exercise for anybody
Mm,
who's listening, and for you and me both.
yes.
You're all about the feminine rebellion. You're all about
Yes.
guiding women back to their wildness.
Yes.
Why don't we end this podcast with a howl?
Oh God, yes. F yes. Can I say that?
Yes. So you guide us. How do we do it? And I would encourage everyone to do it along with us. If you are in a supermarket or whatsoever, like in a public place, it's okay. You don't have to do that.
Yeah.
Do it when you're alone. But if you're in a car or just washing dishes, then go ahead, join us right now. Natty, why don't you do
Okay.
the honors? Guide us into doing
All
it.
right. All right. So it's going to start with a deep breath in and a deep breath out. So filling our lungs and then letting everything out of our lungs. And then the next deep breath in, we will open our mouths, tilt our chins up, and howl. So, okay. Deep breath in, deep breath out, deep breath in, chin up. And you can feel it. Can you feel it vibrating?
I
in your
do.
chest?
It feels so
It's
good.
exhilarating.
It is. I want to
so
do it again.
I know.
Beautiful, amazing. I would love for you to do that and follow Natty on her Instagram. We link it all to the show notes. I of course have a request which I make at the end of every podcast is that if you like this, share it with someone. Go to the 3 red dots or whatever that is on the podcast platform that you're listening to and just copy the link and share it with someone. You never know. This might be the hint, the sign that they're looking for to start their own journey home to self. And you'll also be helping us with getting the word out about the podcast. So definitely do that. And if you like this podcast, you want to share it on Instagram, we would appreciate that. Just tag Natty. Tell us what was your aha moment, your insight from this particular episode, and tag us at Journey Home to Self on Instagram. Natty, thank you so much for coming on the show and
thank you
guiding us.
For welcoming me into this delicious space.
I mean, of course, I can sit with you and talk to you for hours.
Well, I think you're only like 4 hours away from me, so maybe we should.
New Hampshire, your meeting go.
All right. All
right. Thank you, Natty. Thanks for listening to Journey Home to Self. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe on your podcast platform of choice. And of course, your 5-star reviews are always appreciated. Thanks again and see you next week.